Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, I'll show you a couple simple tips to get better mixes. I have my reaper session right here and we're gonna try them right now. Let's get right into it. The first technique is mixing in mono. In case you're wondering exactly what I mean, you go to your master track and you put it in mono. And now instead of sounding like this, it's gonna sound like this. Hopefully you can hear the difference. So that's what I mean by mixing in mono, having your entire mix in mono while you're mixing. And why would you want to do that? You have to think about how your audience is going to be listening to your mixes. Chances are that most people are going to be listening to your mix on their cell phone. They're going to have their cell phone put somewhere, or they're going to be using one of those Bluetooth speakers that, it's just one audio source, or maybe they're going to be listening to it on their laptop and it's going to be like across the room or something. And yes, your laptop has two stereo speakers, or at least most laptops do, but unless you're right in front of it, right in the middle of the stereo image, if it's across the room, that's still one single source of audio coming towards you. Maybe you want your mixes to be on the radio and you want people to be walking on the street and hear your music coming from somewhere. That's still a single mono source. So it is very important that you make sure that your mixes sound good in mono, first of all. Another reason why you may want to do this is that the stereo image, or panning things in the stereo field, that creates the illusion of separation between tracks. If you're mixing in stereo and you start panning things and you have different things on one side and you have another thing on the left side, that starts sounding like things are clear and separated. But when you make it mono, you realize that things are not as clear as you may think. Separating things in the stereo field makes you believe that the mix is clear, but in reality, sometimes it's really not that clear. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna turn off all the EQ that I did to clean up the mix. And I'm going to mess up the faders a little bit, just at random. And I'm gonna put it in stereo. So now let's listen to it. It sounds okay, but now let's put it in mono. It doesn't sound that nice. When you put it in mono, you can see that it's very muddy. It's not clear at all. If you make something sound good in mono, it's gonna sound great in stereo. So what you wanna do is take your instruments that are gonna be panned to the sides. So for example, this guitar. I know that I want it on the right, so I'm gonna put it on the right. I know this one should be on the left. And you want to do that to all of the different things that are going to be panned to the sides. So in this case, I have my drums in one single track because I'm using Get Good Drums Modern and Massive. So they are already panned to the sides. But if you have all of your different tracks, you have your snare drum, your hi-hat, start panning those, put your overheads to the sides. You need to start your mix with everything where it should be in the stereo field. And then you're gonna put it in mono, and then you start mixing. This is very important because you don't wanna start with everything in the center and mixing mono, and then at the end start panning things. It's gonna screw up the balance. So place everything where it should be in the stereo field and then put it in mono. The second tip is mixing very quietly. The easiest way to make something sound good is making it louder. Sometimes we like fooling ourselves, making things louder and making ourselves believe that it sounds better. If you are doing your mix at a reasonable volume and something is lost, maybe you can't hear the bass or the piano, if something is not there, and then you apply a limiter or a heavy compression and then you put everything up and you make it super loud. If everything is super loud, then everything is loud and maybe you're gonna be able to hear that element of your mix. But that doesn't mean that you improve the balance. You're just fooling yourself. That's why most of the time I'm mixing in mono and very quietly. If you have the ability to make your mix sound balanced when it's quiet, when you make it loud, it's gonna sound awesome. So let's try it right now. I'm gonna bring everything down and I'm gonna start balancing in mono and very quietly. I'm gonna start bringing up the drums. I'm actually gonna do this with my master fade at 0 just to make sure that we're not gonna be clipping when we bring it back to 0. Okay, that's good. Now I'm gonna bring everything down. Now I'm gonna start by adding my guitars, and this is up to you. Mixing is very much about personal taste and whatever you want your song to sound like. I know bass players and drummers who like their mixes to be, very bass heavy, very drums heavy, which makes sense. And I'm a guitar player, so I like very loud guitars. So I'm gonna start with that and make sure they're nice and loud. So far we can hear everything. Now I'm gonna add the bass. And here you want to be careful, because if you're listening to a song and you turn it down, you're probably not going to be able to hear the bass. So if you make your bass very loud and clear when it's very quiet, when you bring the whole thing back up, it might be a little bit too loud. So I do double check the bass and I keep going back and forth between quiet and loud. I think that it sounds quite well balanced so far, so I'm gonna bring it back up and I'm gonna see what it sounds like so far, loud and in stereo. I'm gonna bring it back down and we're gonna keep going. So I can already hear that build up in the low frequencies. So that's why I added this EQ. This is a very heavy high pass filter that basically gets rid of all of that low end on the guitar so we can make space for the bass. It is a big difference when I turn off the EQ. It sounds muddy. I know it's a very overused word in mixing, but it sounds very dirty. The mix becomes a lot more clear and clean when you add that high pass. We're gonna keep going. I know that these instruments are gonna be more quiet in the mix. It's just like harmonic support, but I still want to be able to hear them a little bit when the mix is quiet. Okay, I know that I want a little bit more of the main violin playing the melody with the lead guitar, so I'm gonna turn that up a little bit. Choir is a little bit too loud, so I'm going to turn that down. Now, I can hear that low end building up again with those new instruments that I added. So I already have all of these EQs cutting the low end of those instruments. So I'm gonna turn those on and you're gonna hear how the mix gets cleaner. instantly you can hear the bass, and that allows you to bring those other instruments up a little bit without taking away space from the bass itself. I'm gonna leave it like that for now, so I think it sounds pretty decent. So I'm gonna bring it back up and we're gonna put it in stereo and see what it sounds like. I think it sounds pretty good. Honestly, mixing in mono and at low volumes makes mixing way easier. And just so you know, I am using an EQ on the master channel. I am adding a ton of high end, above 12.4K. And this is what the master EQ is doing. Just adding a little bit of low end and adding a bunch of high end. And that's it. That's probably gonna make your mixes faster and easier to make. And they're gonna sound better in a variety of devices. I hope you found this video helpful. If you liked it, please give it a like and consider subscribing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.